Let me introduce myself once more. My name is Attila Toth. I work for Nokia as a security responsible for 2 products and also as a testing lead for functional and security area. From time to time, I hear people talking about security testing and functional testing, and they usually confuse the two. So they handle the same way as it was the same thing. So during this presentation, I try to give you a glimpse why this is not a good approach. And I try to make it from a kind of story point of view, because I had an experience with a specific security finding that I had, and I would like to share the story about it. It's not about software testing and IT, but about something different. Actually, it's about a door. So I have seen a door somewhere in an office building. It doesn't matter which office. It could be in a shopping mall, in your office, in my office, it doesn't matter. So I have seen a door with an apparent security problem. And I would like to play a game with you. And let's imagine how the development of this door and the testing, of course, would lead to this security problem. So let's get started. First of all, if we have this imaginary development process, then let's define the requirements. This was a door that basically separated the garage from the stairs. So it basically served as a physical barrier to both people and, in case of fire, also to fire. So this was a generic expectation from this door. And to make this testable, we need to have specific requirements and testable requirements. So let's define the following, that this door should open and close. It should stop spreading of fire when it is closed, of course. It should provide mechanical barrier when it is closed, so people should not go through it if they are not allowed. And it should require an access card to be opened from the outside. But the tricky thing comes here, that it should not require an access card when you open it from the inside. So you just need the door handle and open it like this. So our imaginary development team has received these requirements. They have analyzed it, have worked hard. And then they come up with this product. So that's the actual door that I have observed somewhere in the world. And now our development team has made a good job, because as you can see, it is made from steel, and it has a hard framing, and it looks like quite rigid. And also it has an access card reader, as we have seen in the requirements. And you can see also some fire safety instructions that you should keep the door closed all the time if people are not passing by. So now we have the product. What can we do with it? Of course, we can test it. So first of all, let's do functional testing. I know that in an iterative kind of development, we are not doing it in a sequential way. So now, for the sake of this thought experiment, let's think about that first we implement the product and then we test it. So for functional testing, we should have a look at first at what are the conditions, or what is the basis on which we do functional testing. And usually, functional testing is based on requirements, functional requirements, or user stories. And we are looking to satisfy the wishes of our customer. And we are basically looking, as part of the testing, whether we have violated at any part these customer expectations. We want to be as fast as possible and to make the product as perfect as possible. So our imaginary functional testing team has created positive and negative scenarios, because they have again analyzed the requirements that we have given. And then they started the testing. So first of all, they checked whether the door opens and closes properly. It worked. They also checked whether the door handle opens the door from inside without using the access card. That worked as well. Then they checked whether the door handle opens the door from the outside, but only with a valid access card. That worked as well. But this team was not just satisfied with this. They kept on testing, and they thought about much more exotic scenarios, so to say. So let's imagine that one guy in the team used this opportunity as an anger management course and slammed the door multiple times with an axe. So this is basically to verify whether it's rigid enough. The door was still okay, so test case passed. Then the other guy, who was rather a pyromaniac, has set fire on one side of the door because he wanted to verify that the insulation is proper and the door stops spreading fire. That worked as well. So now we basically reached and covered all requirements. And now we basically reached 100% completeness and 100% pass rate for the functional testing cases. Now we basically tortured the door, did wrong things and malicious things, whatever. And you might ask that what is still the added value of security testing? Because we did a lot of things already, and what on top of what we have already done can we still do in the name of security testing? To answer this question, let me check how security testing should be done. So what is the basis? As you might remember, for functional testing, we have based the test cases or scenarios or functional functional requirements, sorry. Now in this case, we will place them on security requirements. It looks obvious. And also we will place them on industry best practices, because sometimes if you incorporate some kind of third party, it might be that there is also a guideline how to configure it, how to build it into your product. So you can base the test cases on those guidances. And last but not least, you can also base the test scenarios on the domain knowledge that you have about how things should work in general. So how a door should work, how the locks work, whether there is any kind of problem with it. And now we are not looking for a happy customer, because actually we are, but not in such a sense as we do for functional testing. But we are looking now for weak points, or better to say security holes. So is there anything on this door that is weak and can be compromised? We will check it in a minute. And the other thing that we are looking for as part of security testing are such faults that might be minor on their own, but when you chain them together, maybe execute them in a specific sequence or order, then they will cause a much bigger issue. So now, if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, I hope you can see it as well. So do you see any problem with the door? Just by looking at it. Maybe I can help you. So let's magnify the interesting part of the door. What can we see there? Actually, like in the saying, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So it means that something is missing. We actually discovered a security hole, which is literally a hole, because something is missing there. So the next question, what can we do with this? So now we have identified some potential problem. What can we do with this? Maybe let's try to exploit it. What can we use to exploit this problem? As you remember, I said that we base the security test cases on domain knowledge. Now let's lose the domain knowledge about what we know about doors. So in this case, let's go to a store, buy a cylinder lock that just will fit perfectly into this hole. Okay, so let's go to the store, buy a cylinder lock, just like the one on the picture. Let's put it into the hole, turn the knob, and let's see whether this opens the door. If it opens the door, then we have a problem, because basically the security test case has failed, because somebody unauthorized can go and open the door. If it does not work, then it's okay, we are fine. So next, what happened next with my story, because this is what I actually discovered. Actually, there are two things that you can do. You can do it yourself, but I did not want to engage into criminal activity. Maybe the police would have questioned me why I'm using that door. On the other thing that you can do is, and it's your responsibility as a security tester, that you report the issue to whoever it makes sense. So you can report it to the maker, to the vendor, to the operator or the owner who is interested in knowing about these faults. So I looked for the responsible guy who was operating that building, and I talked to them, and I reported the issue, but it was rejected. Because the guy told me that, do you really think that these locks are that cheap? Do you really think that these locks work like the locks at your home? And you know, this is the problem of domain knowledge. I said, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to steal your time. I was just wanting to notify you that there is a problem. But actually, if I were him, then I would have at least verified what I have just told him. So whether this is really true, that if you put the lock there, it will not open the door. Because in this sense, we just had a hypothesis. The guy said it will not work, and we basically skipped the testing, which is not good. But the story goes on, because I was a little disappointed, because I spent some free time of my own to look for the guy, to investigate the problem, and try to be good and help him. So I went home, and I told my wife about the happenings of the day. And then she asked me out of sudden, what if we make with a different approach, and what if we put something through the hole and try to operate the internal door handle from the outside? So I guess that was a brilliant idea, because I have not thought about this. But I must admit, this is, again, something that is very theoretical at this level. But again, there are 2 points that I want to make here. The first thing is that whenever you have a security problem, like the hole that we have, and then you know about a potential exploit, and you think that that is not possible, then it does not mean we are safe. Because there might be somebody who has an idea and can exploit the very same problem somehow differently. And the other thing is that I would not be able to do this, to be honest. But it's not the question whether I'm able to do it, but is there anybody who is able to do it? And most probably, if somebody is investing time, maybe buying the same door, installing the same door at a remote location, and he has time to practice it, then he will be able to put something through it and open the door. So whenever we think that we are not able to do something, it does not mean that somebody else having much more capacity or much more time or much more fun to do it, then he will not do it. Actually, one more thing that I want to highlight here, that as we arrived here, basically we used some kind of exploratory testing. So we had the door, we had just a picture of it, about the door. We investigated it, had a look at it. We have identified a potential problem about the missing lock. And then we analyzed this and came up with 2 different solutions. Actually, this is a kind of exploratory testing. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is that the story is not ending here. So basically, I know that I'm trying to insist when something is wrong. So I went back to the guy. I told him that, hey, it's still a problem. Maybe you should reconsider it. And it was a happy ending, just like in a Hollywood movie, because then the hole was finally patched. So the case closed. So what can we learn from this short story? Actually, there are some conclusions that I would like to draw that makes functional testing and security testing different. So the first thing is that planning in the way as we do for functional testing might not work for security testing. Because for functional testing, you plan for each and every user story. You can have the plan in advance, you can execute it, and then you are done. If you do the same for security testing, it might miss some of the problems. Because some of the problems are introduced by the development team themselves, by the free factor of implementation. So the way how they implement something, that might introduce a security problem. So what I'm saying here is that you should plan, and also plan some time for free testing, where you can have the opportunity to realize about the specific implementation something that is wrong. Then the other thing that is very important here, that we have made use of domain knowledge. So security testers should not only be good in security testing itself, but he should also know very well the environment, the surrounding, the product, the processes inside, the way how things communicate, because that's the way how he can determine what is a problem, and he can think of more complex scenarios. If you don't have this domain knowledge, then it means that we are thinking only about very simple scenarios. If, let's say, if we have not known how a door lock works, we might have not thought about to put there a cylinder lock that we can buy on the store. And this is also a message to management, so that whenever you have security testers, please encourage them to learn and also give them the opportunity to learn, because that's the way how the quality of testing will increase. Then the other takeaway is that we need to have a phase where security testing works and tests the whole product or system that you have, the final product, not just the small components themselves. Because, for example, if you have two processes that talk to each other to some communication protocol, and you have tested them one by one, each has the best security in the world, but the integration team who integrated these two components to your product has missed to configure the encryption itself. Then, if you are not testing the product as a whole, you will miss that the components speak to each other in plain text, and they are leaking sensitive data. The next thing that I wanted to highlight here is the brainstorming. As I told the story, I went home and my wife had the idea to do something else or to do something in a different way. So I think that's a very important thing in security testing, that it's a creative work. So you need to share your findings or your observations with your colleagues, discuss them, and then you will come up with more ideas, and you will come up with more exploits or more ways how your product might fail. Also, you can think of to organize brainstorming sessions, or the other way is to organize bug hunting sessions. Because on a bug hunting session, somebody finds a fault that might be an idea to the other guy, and based on this idea, he will find another fault. Then, last but not least, exploratory testing should be included for security testing, and there should not be any argument against it. So, you can use a simple method, like try something, you fail, then you change something, you try again, fail again, and after a while you will succeed. But using this simple technique, you will let your people increase and enhance their domain knowledge. Because each time you try something and you fail, then you have learned something. And the people who do this will improve on their domain knowledge. So this is very interesting and important that these two things go hand in hand. So if you think about my very short story, and in your mind you substitute the door with the product that you are working on, then these would be the key points that I would give you as an advice. So start doing exploratory testing. It will pay off, maybe not immediately, but it will pay off after a while, and you will learn a lot during. Then the other advice that I can give you is that test the complete system. There are lots of faults in the complete system that you cannot find in the specific components if you do the testing one by one. And third, you can or you should improve on your domain knowledge, because that's the way how you can increase the quality of security testing. If you know much about your system, you will find lots of more bugs, then you have no idea how the system works. And last but not least, I would like to ask you that please do not consider security testing and functional testing the same way, because they are different. And I hope you got some idea why. And this was basically my short talk. I'm open to questions if you have any.